The New York Times is not scared of Justin Baldoni's $250 million lawsuit. You want to know why I know that? Because Megan Twohey, yes, Megan Twohey, Pulitzer Prize winning fancy journalist Megan Twohey, is out here on their own podcast doubling down on that messy article. The New York Times just dropped a whole podcast episode interviewing themselves. Like, imagine being so full of yourself that instead of answering for the mess that you created, you're like, you know what? Let's just ask ourselves the questions and tell everyone we did nothing wrong. It's actually insane. And guess what? They didn't even mention any of the actual evidence that has come out since their article. Like, hello, you mean to tell me you're covering this case and you just conveniently forgot to mention Baldoni's receipts? His entire lawsuit against you, the New York Times, the fact that actual proof has come out that your reporting was misleading, I just can't. The New York Times has a gaslighting strategy, and this is how they manipulate the public. Why they're not scared of Baldoni's lawsuit and why that matters. And we're going to talk about the receipts that prove that this is their playbook. They are the villain of the story because I know firsthand how this works. I want to talk about how this whole Lively Baldoni thing wouldn't have even been a thing without the New York Times backing Lively, because this isn't just about Baldoni. This is about power, manipulation, and the media deciding who they want to destroy. So let's get into it. Okay, the New York Times We Did Nothing Wrong podcast. The New York Times just released the podcast episode of The Daily where they had their own journalists interview each other about the Baldoni lawsuit. And you're telling me that a newspaper that prides itself on holding people accountable is now just playing defense for itself on its own podcast? Yeah, that checks out. How does that make sense? Not one critical question was asked throughout this whole thing, not one acknowledgement that they might have misrepresented facts, and not one word about the actual lawsuit against them. No, instead, they just repeat the exact same talking points from their original article, like we haven't already seen the receipts by now. And here's the best part. They bragged about how they gave Baldoni's team a chance to respond. That's called journalistic integrity, but they know that this isn't what's going to land them liable for defamation. They said, we reached out to them ahead of time. Oh, you mean the email that you sent at 9:47 p.m. the night before Christmas weekend, giving them 14 hours to respond before publishing the article? You mean that? What normal person, especially someone in the middle of a legal battle, is checking their inbox for PR damage control at 10 p.m. on a holiday weekend? They set him up. And this isn't speculation. This is exactly what Brian Friedman, Baldoni's attorney, pointed out in his lawsuit. This is what they do. And they don't actually want a response. They want you to say they gave you a chance so later they can go, well, we asked and they didn't provide anything, so we ran with that story. It's a trap. And let's talk about why they're acting like this lawsuit doesn't matter. If the New York Times was actually worried about the lawsuit, do you think that Megan Twohey, the same journalist who won a Pulitzer Prize for taking down Weinstein, would be out here casually discussing it on a podcast? No, she wouldn't. Because let me tell you something. When I sued the New York Times, the moment we filed, Taylor Lorenz was basically silent. She wasn't doing interviews. She said that she was taking a break to write her book. She wasn't really defending herself. I think she was shut down. And let's be honest, Taylor Lorenz is no Megan Twohey. Okay, she doesn't have a Pulitzer Prize. She is a TikTok gossip columnist masquerading as a real journalist. But Megan Twohey, she is a Pulitzer Prize winning journalist. She's one of the New York Times most protected reporters. So of course she thinks that, she's good. She's not worried about the New York Times being sued. And the fact that she's still talking tells us something huge. The New York Times is not worried about Baldoni's lawsuit. They don't take him seriously. They don't take really anybody seriously that sues them for defamation. They think that they are untouchable. And honestly, they might be right, because the truth is they've gotten away with this before. She's out here interviewing herself. Essentially, the New York Times out here interviewing themselves about why they think they're right. I'm sorry, but what kind of we're totally unbothered flex is that? Because let me tell you, when I sued the New York Times, they shut Taylor Lorenz all the way up, like gone, vanished, poof, finito, and no shade, but Taylor is no Megan Twohey, okay? The fact that Twohey is still out here talking tells you everything you need to know about how confident the New York Times is, or how cocky they are, okay? Here's why I don't think the New York Times is sweating this lawsuit. When you sue the New York Times, it's like going up against Goliath with a pool noodle. Okay? They haven't lost a defamation case since 1964, allegedly. Yes, you heard that right. 64. And even though Baldoni's case is strong, like he's got screenshots, receipts, the whole 9 yards, the New York Times doesn't care. Why? Because they know how hard it is to win a defamation suit against the media in the US, and they know how to play the game. Take the timing of their article, for example, okay? They emailed Baldoni's team at 9:47 p.m. on a Friday night, right before Christmas, and they gave them until noon the next day to respond. Classic New York Times move, by the way. They did the same thing to me, barely gave me enough time to respond, wouldn't show me their so-called evidence, and then they dropped this hit piece like how I allegedly leaked someone's nudes, okay? Which, for the record, I didn't. But by the time I could defend myself, the damage was done. My company was destroyed, and I didn't have a billionaire backer. The New York Times bias is showing here, and let's talk about the content of that article, Justin Baldoni's article. Megan Twohey's piece practically holds Blake Lively's hand through the narrative. Like, we got to be real here, okay? They framed it so the public would side with her before we even got to hear Justin Baldoni's side. And that's why I rang the alarm on December 26th. For example, they call a video of Baldoni's business partner's wife giving birth, wait for it, pornography, okay? Like, what? If that's corn, then every birthing class on YouTube is a crime. Meanwhile, Baldoni's lawsuit comes in and says, actually, she was fully covered with briefs and a hospital gown, okay, in that scene, not with like a thin piece of fabric or whatever they said. So either the New York Times got played by Blake's team or they conveniently left out some facts. And I'm going with they conveniently left out some facts. And let's be real, if the New York Times hadn't published that article, this entire controversy wouldn't have exploded. Blake Lively filed a complaint with the CRD, but let's be honest, most people had no idea what the CRD even was before this until they gave that CRD to the New York Times. And now it's even coming out that, obviously they had that filing beforehand. I don't know. Anybody thinks that they didn't. Maybe we didn't have proof of it and we needed solid proof. But come on, these people are working on these stories for months. In my opinion, they probably knew from the moment that Blake Lively filed that HR complaint that it was an official HR complaint. But when she had that meeting with Baldoni, I bet you anything they already had it set up. Okay, we're going to do a New York Times thing. I don't know, but I wouldn't put it past them. But the CRD wasn't even a lawsuit. It was just a workplace complaint. And guess what? No one would have even cared. But the minute the New York Times put their name on it, boom, it was the story. And that's how powerful they are. They elevated this complaint into a full-blown Justin Baldoni is a predator media circus. And now, instead of taking responsibility for their role in that, they're just going to pretend it didn't happen. And you know what? They're probably loving the fact that everybody's asking if Ryan Reynolds is the villain here. No, the New York Times is the villain. Okay. I'm sorry. At the end of the day, this isn't just about Baldoni. This is about how the media controls. This is about how they destroy reputations and then act like they're untouchable. And this is about why you need to question everything that they tell you. So I'll leave you with this. Do you think the New York Times should be held accountable when they lie? Maybe not in a court, right? Because it's seemingly impossible. Do you think that their reporting was deliberately misleading? And do you think that they're too powerful to fail? Well, let me know in the comments, what can we do about this? Honestly, if it's insane to sue them, you could have a billionaire suing them and it doesn't really matter. I don't think that the lawsuit's going to stick because they haven't lost a defamation case since like 1964. So if you're sick of the media getting away with this, like this video, subscribe for more deep dives, and share this video so more people see what's actually happening, because if we don't call this out, they'll just keep doing it. When they came for me, they made these broad, salacious claims that I was a corrupt manager, but conveniently forgot to include the actual facts that proved otherwise. And I had to sue them just to get a sliver of accountability. Why does this matter, and why should you be paying attention? You might be thinking, okay, Ari, why should I care, especially about you? Okay, because this isn't just about Justin Baldoni or Blake Lively or me. This is about how powerful media organizations like the New York Times can be and how they can destroy someone's reputation with one single article, okay? Think about it. If the New York Times says something, people believe it, even if it's biased. It's the New York Times. It is the gold standard of news, even if it's twisted, and it takes years to undo the damage. Trust me, I know. When their article about me came out, people treated it like it was gospel. It didn't matter that it was full of half-truths and straight up lies. And I had to spend years clawing my way back to clear my own name. Justin Baldoni has a billionaire backer to help him fight this. I didn't. Most people don't. So when the New York Times decides you're the villain, good luck with that. It's a fight you're not supposed to win. And I think that is what really people need to focus on, because if you want to make change, so this doesn't happen to Justin Baldoni, so this doesn't happen to the likes of me or the likes of you, here's what you need to take away from this. The media isn't always the hero. Even the gold standard outlets like the New York Times can get it wrong, and often do get it wrong, and they often want to get it the way that they see it. And when they do, they rarely admit it. Don't take stories at face value anymore, ever again. Question the narrative. Why are they framing it this way? What aren't they telling you? Receipts matter. And Baldoni's team has a lot of receipts, and they're fighting back publicly. When the media twists the truth, your best defense is cold, hard facts. It really is. And I wish I could go back and just like basically scoop the New York Times and ring the alarm before they even wrote the story. The system is broken. I'm going to say that flat out. Defamation laws make it nearly impossible to hold media outlets accountable, and you need to know that. Honestly, this case is a masterclass in how power works in Hollywood. The PR machine, the media spin, the backroom deals, it's all on display here. Go back and look at my case. Go look at the story of what happened, and go look at the court filings. It is a playbook. And the fact that the New York Times is still doubling down, doing podcasts, interviewing themselves basically without any hard hitting questions, it tells you everything you need to know about who they think is going to come out on top. So, yeah, I'll be keeping my eye on this, because if there's one thing I know, it's how dangerous the media can be when they get it wrong. And if you don't believe me, just Google my name, okay? Let me know in the comments. Are you Team Justin, Team Blake, or Team the New York Times needs to take a seat? If you are obsessed with this drama as much as I am, make sure to subscribe, because I'm not done talking about it. All right, that's it for today. Go question some narratives, and I will see you next time, besties. You can find me at littlemissjacob.com, or if your business needs short form video content, head to creatorgenius.com, and I will see you guys on the next one. Bye.